Fantastic. All right. Well, a very warm welcome to everyone. If I could make a first request, just with these large Zoom meetings, if you're not speaking, it would be great if you could mute your microphone so your background doesn't come through. That would be great. Yeah, so really very warm welcome to everyone. It's great to be using the technology to once again get together and share ideas. My name's Chris Russell and I'm the president of BGANZ. And I'd really like to, I guess, start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the many, many lands upon which we're meeting today across 2 countries, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. We had a fantastic response to the online members survey conducted over the past couple of weeks. So it's really great to see so many of you joining us with the online forum today. I'm just going to give a brief introduction this morning, but before I do that, we'll just run through the how we plan to approach the next hour. So we might just go to the next slide, Julia. So I'll give a brief introduction to what we're aiming to get out of today, and then hand over to Julia Watson, who is the BGen convener based in Auckland, to host the workshop. And the most important part of today is really about giving that opportunity to drill a bit deeper into the information we got from the online survey to get, I guess, a bit more of that qualitative information that you can really only get through talking with people and hearing you express with a bit more scope than an online survey provides. So Julia will give a brief outline of the online survey results, and then we'll go into that really most important bit of hearing directly from you, and then I'll conclude and just outline the next steps. So in terms of the, I guess, why are we doing this? I mean, if you think BGANZ was established in 2004 and now includes, over 140 Botanic Gardens, Arboretum and university campus members across Australia and New Zealand. Currently, we are an incorporated association registered in the ACT, the Australian Capital Territory, as was established at inception back in 2004. And Council have been looking at that situation and some other things I'll talk to in a minute, but we feel as an organisation with membership across the 2 countries, that's really no longer an appropriate kind of governance model. At the same time, we've been going through a period of expansion with some recent successes in sponsorship, giving us more resources to achieve things. So, and in that space, to be attractive to more donors and sponsors, we need to change our governance structure to achieve what's called deductible gift recipient status. I won't dive into the weeds with this, but it's something that our current governance model doesn't support us achieving that. So really some pragmatic drivers to step back and review what we want to be as an organisation in the years ahead, what we want to be able to achieve for members, and what structure would best support that. We've engaged Leanne Muffet from Strategic Matters, who's done some really good strategic work with Botanic Gardens, so she knows our industry, to assist Council in undertaking a review of our objectives, and from that to develop a preferred structural model, which we would then bring back and put to members to vote on. So a really critical part is hearing from you, our members, what you value about BGANZ now, what you think might be something that is important for us to invest more resources and attention in. And that's what today's session is all about. So I think with that, I'll hand over to Julia to move into the next step of outlining the survey results and then the feedback session. Thanks, Julia.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Chris, and welcome everybody. It's so great to see you all online today. We really appreciate you taking the time. For those of you who I haven't met yet, I work at the Auckland Botanic Gardens and I'm the Botanic Gardens Engagement Network Convener for BGANZ and sit on BGANZ Council and have been assisting with the process of the governance review and the survey. My role today really is host. So I'm going to hopefully guide you through today and really we're really excited to hear from everyone who is here. For those of you who haven't used Zoom too frequently, just a few housekeeping items. So if you could please keep yourself muted while you're not talking, that would be great. It just means that background noise is limited. And also if you would like to toggle between speaker view and gallery view when I'm not sharing my screen. If you'd like to see everyone who's on the call, you can click gallery view. It's a little box of squares on your screen, which you can see usually when I'm not sharing my screen, so a little bit later. Or speaker view just means you can see full screen the person who is speaking once this presentation is over. So what we're going to do is I'm going to do a very, very short overview of the survey results. The reason it's going to be so short, as Chris mentioned, is that we want to hear from everybody. This is an opportunity to hear from as many people as possible, but we're going to email these results to everyone so you can have time to go through them in detail. So please don't worry if I skip over some small details. This will all be emailed to you as well. So the aim of today really is to dig deeper. We've got your survey results, we've heard from you, we got an amazing response, but we would like to dig deeper into certain themes and really hear directly from members and hear your voice. In terms of the survey, we had an overwhelmingly positive response. It was wonderful to read the comments. There's really a wonderful feeling for BGANZ and what it's doing, and hearing from members was extremely positive. So I wanted to just reiterate that there was a really big theme that came through was the strength of BGANZ and its members as well. We got over 147 responses. All states were represented right across Australia and New Zealand, more than 50 gardens, and actually we had 18 pages of comments, which we have read through in detail, and also we have been collating those and categorizing them. What we'll do is after the survey results is then it'll be time for you to actually tell us your thoughts. And we're going to show 4 themes that have come through very strongly that we'd like to hear from you about. And the way we'll do that is we will call your name, ask you to give some feedback. You can unmute yourself, speak for 1 or 2 minutes, and then when you're finished, mute yourself. And we'd really like to go through as many gardens as possible and have a good representation right across every region and right across Australasia as well. So I'll be the host facilitating that. So as I'm going through the survey results, it'd be really lovely for you to formulate your thoughts and anything else that you would like to tell us. So let's get into the survey results. Just getting to the next slide. Here we go. So you might wonder why we're going straight to question 2. Well, question 1 was, what is your name and what garden do you belong to? So we thought we wouldn't share that. So question 2, what do you believe are the 3 main functions of BGANZ in supporting and representing its members? Select 3 from the options below. What I've done here is I have highlighted the top responses. This is percentage of respondents of who, which choices were chosen the most frequently. So over 50% of respondents said provide a forum for information exchange, for example, at the National Congress, maintain and foster regional communication and networking, facilitate and support professional development in the Botanic Gardens sector, increase awareness of Botanic Gardens' role and their relevance to communities, and promote the interests and activities of Australian and New Zealand Botanic Gardens and Botanic Gardens generally. So all of those were over 40 to 50% of respondents were choosing those in the top 3. And below that, there are a few other sectors, but they are important. They just had fewer people choosing those as their response. For example, advocating for plant conservation and foster plant sciences, foster best practice standards, build and maintain links and partnerships with relevant national and international bodies, build capacity within the sector, and provide policy and legislative advice. And I've also got some, I thought I'd read out some pertinent comments as well. So for question 2 about believing the main function of BGAN, one of the responses said, I would add regional network meetings and special interest groups, for example, BGen and BCom, etc., to the national congresses. So those are great comments and ideas that we are collating and feeding into this review as well. Question 3, you won't see on the next slide. Question 3 was qualitative. It was all about what is the value of BGANZ to you. So what I've done is just highlighted a few of the responses which really summarize some of the main responses that came through. So for example, the opportunity to engage with a broader network of botanic gardens across Australia and New Zealand. I value being able to raise with others the matters I'm concerned about and receive advice and encouragement. I value being able to experience other gardens and learn about the challenges they face and the ways in which they're tackling challenges and opportunities. So it's great to get deeper into the answers there as well. Question 4, my screen's actually hiding the top part of question 4. There you go. What do you need to grow professionally and make an impact? So the top responses there that we got were connect to other members through a directory of Botanic Gardens experts, professional development and capacity building opportunities, BGANZ professional groups such as BGen and BCOM, so the engagement network group and the collections and record management group that facilitate information sharing, practice support and opportunity for collaboration, and vibrant BGANZ regional groups such as BGANZ Queensland, Victoria, New Zealand, New South Wales, etc. And following that was funding, and then funding for innovation and projects, funding for professional developments or not applicable other, and I have ample professional development support and opportunities. Question 5, what BGANZ memberships do you find the most valuable? Number 1 in pole position was the Botanic Gardener magazine. It's great to know that so many people appreciate that resource and how valuable it is. The professional network working groups such as engagements, collections and record management, online forums, panel discussions and webinars, the weekly email newsletter promoting events, news and jobs, partnership and shared knowledge opportunities, and the Botanic Gardens Day. And then you can see the rest that are developed there as well. So question 5, there was another, one of the comments that was also mentioned was make conservation and science more prominent and strong links to BGCI, Botanic Gardens Conservation International, which is really important as well. Question 6, what are 2 things that BGANZ could change or do better to support you in the future? Advocating at a government level for botanic gardens, increase support and initiatives for regional botanic gardens, provide more professional development opportunities, for example, forums, webinars, working groups for information exchange, and offer more funding opportunities for botanic gardens projects. And so the next 2 questions, there were just 8 questions that you went through, were also qualitative. So question 7 and question 8. Question 7 was where would you like to see BGANZ in the next 5 years? And question 8 was really anything else people would like to respond to. So question 7, just a few responses that were a great summary. BGANZ is already an effective organisation. However, the next 5 years may present opportunities for increased digital and virtual events. The fact that BGANZ is undertaking this survey and review is an indication that things are in good shape. No need for change for the sake of change, just incremental improvement. And as the first place to go to connect, ask questions, and seek professional advice. So that was a whirlwind overview of the survey. And as I mentioned, it will be emailed to you. So you have a lot more time to go through it. And if there's any questions that you have, you're very welcome to email Amon and ask those questions. So this section now really is what we want to do and really get into the meat of this meeting, which is hearing from you. And as I mentioned earlier, from those 18 pages of comments, from the survey, from everything that we've gathered up to now, there have been 4 themes that have come through really strongly. I'll show those 4 themes on the next screen, and this can provide a really nice basis for us to hear from you and your feedback as well. So if you can bear them in mind when you're actually feeding back to us, that will be really well appreciated. So these are the 4 themes that have come through very strongly. Firstly, regional botanic gardens and support for them. What do members need? These are the questions we'd love to hear from you, diving deeper into, and how do we improve services for regional botanic gardens? Next is networking. What opportunities would you like to see? Professional development. What disciplines should BGANZ support? And conservation. What kind of leadership can BGANZ provide? So those are really just an indication. Those are some key themes that we'd love to hear about. But obviously, if you have something else that is on your mind that you would like to bring up, now is a good time to bring it up. And I also wanted to mention that we are taking notes during this, and it's going to feed into the review as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen because it's easier for us to see each other when we don't have my screen being shared. There you go. And as I mentioned, if you'd like to see everyone, just toggle between gallery view and speaker view. If you have questions, pop them into the chat. And now we're really going to go into hearing from as many gardens as possible. We've got about 40 minutes left. And what I'm going to do is just call your name. Please unmute yourself. Give us your thoughts. We'd love to hear them in a minute or two, and then mute yourself again and we'll move to the next person. If you do tend to, if it's going a little bit long, I might have to step in, but otherwise I'm sure everyone's very capable of just keeping it short, but giving us your insights as well. Okay, so first up, I would like to call on someone who's very close geographically to me, and that is the chair of New Zealand BGANZ, and that is Beck Stanley.
Hello, Julia, thank you. So two things from me. Oh, well, firstly, thanks for asking us. It's a great opportunity to have input, and that feels really great. So I've got two things I'll pick out. One is the digital tools that BGANZ has picked up over COVID, I think are fantastic, and I think that hooks into the networking and the regional botanic garden need, that if you're geographically remote, ways of meeting like this are just wonderful. Even just seeing people's faces, I sit here trying to, I want to wave to everyone that I know, and it just feels like it's just really useful, and yeah, on so many levels. So yeah, I guess we've learnt lots of skills during COVID, and post-COVID I'd like to see BGANZ still using these forums remotely to connect us. The second thing I'd like to mention is that on the professional development area, I get so much value out of connecting to my colleagues in Australia and New Zealand, and I wonder whether that could filter deeper into our gardens. So I notice our gardeners probably don't have that same connection to BGANZ. And it was mentioned, I think, in some of the survey, it came out, that directory of experts, and I heard a few words like that. So I'm wondering whether something to work on is trying to connect people who look after collections directly or who garden. I wonder if that's an area where professional development could go. And I certainly get a lot out of the exchanges that we do in New Zealand, and that's one way the gardeners are connecting in New Zealand. But then I kind of think this forum would be wonderful for everyone who worked on camellias, or everyone who was a collection curator, or things like that. So yeah, thank you for the opportunity, and I'll let you move on.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Beck. Those are great points. And I see Sam busily writing notes, so those have all been recorded. So next, I'm going to ask John Onnett from Victoria, and just a heads up that Mike Elgie from Queensland, I'm going to ask you after John Onnett, just so that it gives you a moment to gather your thoughts. So thanks, John.
No worries. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm really attracted to the supporting regional botanic gardens agenda, and that's because many regional botanic gardens, particularly in Australia, are funded by local government authorities, and collections curators, managers, garden supervisors, head gardeners and the like can't necessarily look to council for guidance and inspiration. They can look to council for funding, but the business of botanic gardens is actually quite specific. So we've got a really specific skill set and skill requirement in an organisation which is funding, which is quite general. So yeah, what the members need from regional botanic gardens is a really interesting thing to unpack, I think. To Beck's point about collections curators, I actually think that that's the role of BCAM, and that's the function of BCAM, is to connect. That's essentially about collections management. It's about horticulturists. It's almost like a grower network. So I'm wondering whether sort of BCAM is it's a bit of an untapped resource at this point, and I think there's lots of potential in that space for BCARM. They'd be the main things. It'd be the regional gardens theme, and I guess it's what kind of leadership should BGANZ provide for conservation, and I think the tool for that is the BCARM group.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Yeah, I think there's great strength in these groups. So those are really excellent points. Next, we'll have Mike from Queensland.
G'day all, Mike LG from Rockhampton Botanic Gardens. So I'm the council representative for Queensland. Probably the biggest thing for regional botanic gardens, like John has just mentioned, we are all council funded or volunteer funded. So a lot, from my perspective in here at Rockhampton Botanic Gardens, I'm the only person that has worked in a botanic gardens out of our local region. So I think for BGANZ, there's opportunities there for some sort of mentoring or training for the staff in those regional botanic gardens. It doesn't have to be a qualified or ATO provided course or anything, just some sort of training or mentoring on collection management, on curation, on how to build collections based on taxonomy or plant families, geography and so forth. That's a lot of skills I'm finding in my succession planning with my staff here. They don't have any experience in those realms coming from larger botanic gardens. So I think for BGANZ, and John's already pretty much touched on it, the funding, yes, we go to council for funding, but the more strategic and professionalism has to come maybe from BGANZ.
Great, thank you. Thanks for that. Mentoring came up a lot, and I think there's huge potential in that. So thank you for raising that today. Next, we have Wayne Harvey, who's the president of the Friends. Thanks, Wayne.
There we go, unmuted. Thanks, Judy. First of all, just to explain myself, as I indicated earlier, I'm currently the president of the AAFBG. That's a national peak body that represents all the volunteer groups, or the friends groups around Botanic Gardens. I've been in the role for a bit over a year now, so I'm slowly coming to terms with the AAFBG and its workings, and also, of course, coming to understand something about BGANZ. My second role that relates to this is that I'm also president of the Friends of the Waite Arboretum here at Adelaide University in Adelaide. So I have some direct knowledge of how these parks and arboretum work. The reason for being involved in this today is twofold. First of all, I was intrigued by the notion to change your corporate structure, particularly because I've been through the very same process with a couple of other organisations that I sit on the board of. But probably more importantly, the BGANZ and the AAFBG do have an MOU between the two organisations. So there is a sense of collaboration, cooperation. The MOU is reviewed on an annual basis. We'll be coming up to that very soon. So I think it's terribly important for at least one party to understand how the other party is thinking and where it's going. So I'm really interested in understanding more about BGANZ, the members, where the members feel BGANZ should be going, and so on and so on. As a final observation, I was intrigued by the reference to regional gardens in your survey, continuous reference to regional gardens. And I'm wondering whether it's because of the factors that some people have already mentioned, that is that sort of soft funding that's dependent on local bodies, or whether it's more about the high number of your members that are in fact coming from regional gardens. I'm wondering whether, perhaps as a quick question, and I don't know who to direct the question to, the capital city gardens, where do they sit in the survey? And are there any members in the forum here today from Capital City Gardens who might want to comment on the balance between an emphasis on regional and an emphasis on capital city? Okay, thanks, Julia.
Thank you, Wayne. Those are really good questions. And Eamon, do you want to answer any of that, or I just want to point out that Wayne, and for everyone else, that there about the DGR status, there is a PDF that's been circulated, so it does have a bit more detail, and actually we do have a timeline that we can share with you at the end that we're going to inform members of every sort of step along the way and all extra information as it's developed too. So I'm going to share that with you as well. So there are a lot of details that are available, but happy to share more with you, Wayne, if you need. Eamon, do you want to catch up with Wayne afterwards about the capital gardens and the regional gardens question?
Yeah, that sounds great. Will do.
Okay, thanks. Hope that's all right, Wayne. We can catch up with you on that as well.
Yep.
Great,
Thank
you.
you.
Wonderful. So next we have text from Dandenong.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, my assistant didn't unmute me then. I had to reach across.
Busy writing.
Thank you, and thank you for having me in this forum. I think the survey was great, and I guess I thought some of those comments, like specifically the one I thought resounded with me, was the fact that we don't necessarily need to go in and fix everything. That I think BGANZ is growing incrementally, and I think, you know, I get a lot of value out of my involvement in BGANZ, as does the garden that I work for. So I think, you know, this virtual forum is a really good example of how we've had to react and get on board with something. So I think that this sort of forum does sort of carry a lot of weight in the future, where, you know, for those groups such as BGen and BCALM and for regional gardens to be able to tap into the expertise within the network, and I think that's where that relationship between the major metro and the regional gardens flows really nicely. Like, a lot of the major metro gardens do have those sort of resources and expertise that our regional gardens don't have. So I think opening up that ability for everyone to connect better is a really, really important function for BGANZ. And I think the other one that through the survey that really resounded with me is that sort of advocating at government level. And so for my example being, so for those that don't know, from the Dandenong Ranges Botanic Garden in Olinda, Victoria. So for us, we're part of this Parks Victoria state government organisation, and similarly to a lot of local government gardens, I guess we can feel a little bit lost within our own organisation as far as we don't get that guidance, Botanic Gardens specific expertise guidance from our organisation down. So I think the ability for BGANZ to sort of have some of that top-down messaging from the government, whether it be government level, or even just from executive level within some of the organisations that represent the regional gardens, I think that would be, again, a really core function of BGANZ. So yeah, but as I said, I think there's some exciting things in the pipeline happening sort of over the next 12 months as it is. So I really do think that incremental growth is a really good thing that was pointed out by somebody in the survey. I think that's exciting. So yeah, that's me.
Awesome, thank you, Tex. And you're right, this is all information gathering that's going to lead into where to from here. It doesn't necessarily mean we can implement everything straight away, but those are great points. Thank you so much. Just a note to everyone who is who's on this call, just to please check your chat, because what we're trying to do is give you a little heads up that you might be next in the queue. It just means that maybe you don't get such a fright when I call your name. So have a look. You might have a little chat from Eamon giving you a little heads up. So we don't want to give you too much of a fright. And also, Chris, you know, you're welcome to jump in anytime if there's anything that you'd like to respond to as well. Next up, we have John Bentley, who's from Melton Botanic Gardens.
Oh, I didn't know I was saying anything. But I certainly agree with everything that John Arnott said. I thought that was spot on for us. And we're in a different situation because we're all volunteers building a botanic garden with limited expertise and horticultural background. I mean, I come with information systems and management and chemistry background over the many years I've been doing stuff. and all my gardening's been learned on the fly, and now I'm running Iris, BG, and quite a lot of other things. So the networking and what's been done in BGANZ, especially having a vibrant BGANZ Vic over the years, has given us lots of networking, connections, support, plant sharing. I've joined the BCAM, what is it called now? BCAM, isn't it? We've been picking up things, learning a lot from the educational things and sharing that with our volunteers to see if people want to take those up. So the resources have been good. Links with other external organisations I think are also important, like BGCI. That's been a great source of pulling things together. And we've also done things with Q Science and stuff like that. So resources that have been built up by Botanic Gardens, I think are really valuable, and we've got to see that we're all in this together to improve outcomes in terms of plants, supporting people, resources, and the sorts of things that Botanic Gardens do. And that's why it's important, I think, to have that link and representation into government at all levels. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, John. And yes, volunteers are just the backbone of so many of our organisations, and so important as well. And that resource sharing is a huge thing that BGANZ can provide. Just about the database, I just thought I'd quickly ask Tex if you wanted to give a quick plug for the database project that's happening at the moment, and just a lot of people might not be aware of some of those details, because it's an incredibly valuable project for so many gardens.
Yeah, thanks, Julia. Sorry, I missed Eamon's prompt on that one. So we are running, for those that haven't sort of been up to date with this, I hope a lot of you probably have. So BGANZ is running a project to look at appointing a company to supply a record management system specifically for Botanic Gardens and roll that out across the network. So we've got a working group working towards that outcome at the moment. So the idea is that, and I guess the things that are really important about this at the moment is that we're really pushing that it has to be a user-friendly, appealing system to use that actually breaks down a lot of the processes involved in capturing records within the gardens. Again, looking at, certainly not excluding major metro gardens by any stretch, but really pitching it towards regional gardens that don't have those resources in place, such as collections offices and things like that. So we're currently in the phase of we issued a tender at the end of August. We've received 6 responses from, as I said, specific collections management databases, and actually going through the evaluation process for that now. So the idea is that again, user-friendly, rolled out to the network in 2 stages. So the first stage is looking at Victorian gardens. The second stage will be going national. So yeah, I think that's it in a nutshell. So just keep an eye out on the progress for that.
Thank you. That's excellent. So watch your inboxes. Also, BCOM has a section on the BGANZ website, so I encourage you to go and look at that. And obviously just get hold of Eamon if you're not sure who else to get hold of. Next, we're going to fly back to New Zealand and to Christchurch, and we'd love to hear from Wolfgang.
Hi, good afternoon. Sorry, I'm in a different building, different meeting room, so I've forgotten to bring my camera across from the gardens. Really good to hear the discussion. To me, I think probably the biggest value is that, you know, what we've been doing over lockdown is having more of those online conversations and using those tools, and I think developing that more, because the distances in this part of the world are so great that, you know, even us as neighboring gardens, you know, Alan, it takes 5 hours to go down to you and you come up to us type thing. So, you know, I think trying to use that potential, as was discussed, you know, for instance, to get horticulturists, collection managers together and maybe develop sort of, you know, a chat every now and then for an hour online, probably will give a huge amount of value, because the networking to me is the big thing that we do here and that I think, you know, people are asking for. And it's the same from my experience in the UK, you know, same sort of thing, to have that network available to everybody.
Excellent. Thanks, Wolfgang. And yes, imagine all the carbon that we're saving. It's amazing.
Absolutely. And I mean, and we're all going into, you know, certainly in New Zealand, we're going into, you know, periods when money is going to be tight. I mean,
yes,
you know, last year we were told, right, your training budget has to come down by 75% or something. And that means trying to get somebody to fly off and take part in a workshop for a day or two is just really difficult. Whereas, you know, having them sit in behind a computer and taking part is still possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. That's really valuable. Next, we're going to go to Amelia, who is, I'm just checking my notes here, is from Amelia Martin Jensen from the Royal Botanic Gardens Sydney and Australian Network for Plant Conservation.
Thanks, Julia. And I'd like to say hello to everyone in the network, and thanks for the warm welcome, particularly from Beck Stanley. So I'm keen to say the Australian Network for Plant Conservation is keen to partner with BGANZ in promoting their conservation leadership agenda. At the moment, my role is a project manager for reviewing the ex situ conservation guidelines. So we have more than 50 often botanic gardens professionals from around Australia and New Zealand reviewing those ex situ guidelines. And we're hoping to really unlock a lot of the really important horticultural expertise that goes along with conserving plants. And a lot of them are from the major metropolitan botanic gardens, but we also have people in regional botanic gardens who, you know, have fantastic expertise to share with people, and we're hoping to make some of those available as case studies. And we're really keen to perhaps jointly work on some professional development opportunities. The ANPC runs a lot of professional development workshops, and we will be looking more to use digital tools for training in the coming years, which might make it more accessible and affordable as well.
Great. Thanks, Amelia. That's wonderful news. Partnerships are so important. And I think there are a lot of people crying out for these resources and this expertise and the horticultural side of things. So that's really valuable. Thank you so much. So next, we're going to go to New Zealand, to Wellington Botanic Gardens and David Soul.
Hi everybody, and nice to be in touch with you again, and I'm sort of back in the seat for a while yet. I think there's a couple of things that come to me, and one is about regional gardens, and I think regional gardens, we shouldn't underestimate the resources regional gardens bring to our thinking, to our capability, and while those are perhaps in those capital city gardens and the better funded gardens, if I may use the word, perhaps are slightly more comfortable in the resources that we have. The fact that regional gardens have to do it hard, and they do have a huge amount of expertise, and so we shouldn't underestimate the contribution that they do and can bring to the organisation. For me, look, I think all the comments have been fantastic. For me, I sort of burnt back to one of those key things about BGANZ, about advocacy, and that advocacy to government is not about just about capital city gardens. It's about BGANZ as a whole, and the value, and really when you start to look at those 100 or whatever it is gardens, actually, as somebody's already pointed out, a substantial number of those gardens are regional gardens, and they're adding value. They're adding value to the economy. They're adding value to health and well-being, all that big picture stuff, which is not just regional. It's national things, and so perhaps what I'm trying to say here is quantifying what they do, and through some metrics that they belong to the big picture. The big picture doesn't belong just to capital city gardens.
Great, thanks, David. Yes, and I think you've really reiterated one of those major themes that we brought up earlier, which was the role of regional gardens, the importance, the fact that they're, you know, a huge part of the membership, and yeah, it's really a very big topic that's important that we're going to be looking into even more as BGANZ as well. So just a reminder of those topics again. So we're looking at regional botanic gardens, how can BGANZ support you, networking, and what can we provide as BGANZ, professional development, and also conservation too. So next we're going to go to Charlie, who is from Ella Luan. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. No, everyone's shaking his head. Sorry, Charlie, you can tell me how to say it properly.
Sure, I'm just going to step outside, so bear with me for a minute. It was pretty close, actually, not a bad effort. It's Araluen.
Araluen.
So yeah, 1R, 1L.
Thank
Araluen
you.
Botanic Park is what we are at the moment. Yeah, look, I didn't really sort of prepare anything, I guess, but just thinking we are in our journey and where I am in my journey here, I'm about 9 months in, so just about starting to figure out which way's up. And I think another factor is just having to sort of completely reinvent itself as a garden. It started from this situation where it was almost sold off development back in the early 90s and basically it's not an uncommon story for Botanic Garden. We've relied really heavily for our funding on events, hosting events at the park. Probably the biggest, the most well-known of those is the Spring Tulip Festival, which we're just coming to the end of now. Something that presents as a real tangible impact of climate change here is how much shorter and less reliable that tulip display is becoming, and what that then means for how we operate our business model, I guess, going forward. So that's going to present some major challenges, and then getting into what we can sort of do from a botanic perspective to bring the botanic into our roses and camellias and all of these other relatively cool season exotics that are documented to some degree, but it's quite patchy. So, looking at really trying to pick that up as a project once we get some air. And we've got I think it's about 40 to 50 hectares of Darling Scarp bushland as part of our property, and a really unique kind of microclimate here, sort of the north-south running valley. So just something that's on my radar to try and get on unique and interesting flora from the bushland into cultivation into the garden. So collected a bit of Rhodanthe manglesii from that patch of bushland yesterday. Hopefully get some seed from that. But yeah, looking at that as the beginning of hopefully something that can expand more into the future.
Great. Thank you so much. It's a little bit patchy, but I think we caught most of that, and quite a lot of focus on conservation and climate change there as well that we heard coming through.
Yep.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thanks very much, Charlie. Just a reminder to check your chat. We've just had a link shared by Amelia on germplasm guidelines, if you're interested. So it's a great place to share any links that you'd like to share. Next, I'd like to ask, we're going to go back to Wellington and chat to Radine.
Hello, everybody. I'm Radine here at Wellington Gardens. I think for me, in terms of a space that BGANZ could be growing is in the relevance to the wider teams. So I know for us, we've got kind of the manager's level and to some degree going down a little bit into the wider team. There is some relevance, but really trying to strengthen that professional development and yeah, just making it more of a known tool and known resource for support in terms of mentoring. I think that would be a great way to kind of share the knowledge. There's so much knowledge around the table. There's a table. So yeah, I'd really like to see that being available and promoted amongst the different team.
Great. Well, thanks very much, Radine. That's really helpful. Okay, next up, rolling the lottery here. I'm actually waiting for Eamon to help me out, but
well, I'll just say very quickly, we don't have a lot of time left, and some people I don't know, so I haven't contacted you. So if you would like the opportunity to speak, we'd love to hear from you, particularly from some of the gardens or areas that we haven't heard. Emma would you contribute? Emma Bosley from Auckland.
And yeah, just a note, if you'd like to contribute, just click, there's a little yes green tick that actually is at the next to your chat box. If you just click the green tick, I'll just go through the list and call your name. So after Emma, I'll start going through the green ticks. Go for it, Emma.
Hi everyone. Great conversation, and I suppose one of the things I value the most out of this network is the networking, and a bit like what Beck mentioned at the start, I find that there is kind of a lacking of engagement with our field teams, and just one idea I had throughout this conversation was using some of the other channels and tools to make engagement a bit more informal. For example, like a Facebook group. I know I use Twitter in that kind of way to talk to many of you. I'll put out a question that I have a problem with, but it might be a nice way to have a closed group that anyone can be a part of. We can have informal polls and stuff to kind of gauge interest for talks and webinars and things like that. So just one of the ideas I've had through this great conversation.
Great, thanks very much, Emma. That's a great suggestion, and we'll definitely add that to the list of ideas. It's so nice to be able to use multiple different tools to connect with people. Okay, so I'm going to announce the next 3 people who are going to be up in line. We're going to have Ashley Filipovsky, who's the Acting Director of Geelong, and then we're going to have Martin Weaver, and following that, Donna Thomas from Ballarat. So I'll first call on Ashley Filipovsky.
G'day, thanks for that. Yeah, one thing that I suppose really spoke to me was the increased awareness of the role the Botanic Gardens play in our communities. So something that we've been facing with Geelong lately, or in our particular Botanic Gardens, is what is our sense of purpose? What do we do here? And who are we? And how do we become more than just a really highly well-maintained park? So that's just something that we've been challenged with a little bit lately, and having partnerships with obviously BGANZ has been great for us. We've got some of our staff attending this one today, and we're finding it very motivational and helping us to kind of form some strategic directions. So I think it's really valuable, but I think I'd love to see maybe even workshops run into how a regional Botanic Gardens can, I suppose, advocate to its local government bodies. And how we can, I suppose, play a more important role in horticulture and making that a bit more of the forefront of our local governments. So that's basically my 2 bob. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That's great. So we're getting to close to the close. So we're going to have Martin Weaver, then Donna Thomas, and then we'll also have Jill Burness. And then it's the final call for anyone else who'd like to add anything. So next up, I'd like to hear from Martin Weaver.
Yeah, cool, everybody. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm not sure if these headphones are coming through clear. Cool. So I'm the curator at the National Arboretum of New Zealand up at Eastwood Hill. And yeah, I would just like to say that it's been interesting to engage with the group, seeing all the emails come through. I think it is a great community that is linking in. I'm going to be a little bit tree biased, I'm afraid, as we are here, but just wondering if the group has got any opportunities to work on the back of the work that the BGCI, the IUCN are doing with regards to the global consortium for oaks and ash and things like that, and how maybe as a collective there is a very specific element to the group that would say a working party or whatever it might be. They're going, okay, as a collective, we're going to pull all of our resources together and respond as a group for those types of consortium ideas. So that'd be great if we could look at those types of opportunities as well as and again, it would then boost the credibility of the group, I think, to be able to link straight back through and understand what we have as a collective. Obviously here at Eastwood Hill, we have a huge range of species which are globally important, but again, it's a case of what do we have in the country to be able to say, okay, we're really going to focus down to this particular species. How are we going to propagate? How are we going to link back through to that global tree conservation? So be interesting to see if the group is that way inclined.
Yeah. Excellent, thank you. And I think the leadership of those groups can come from within the BGANZ members, which is so wonderful about the strength of our network as well. So maybe you could start one, but absolutely, those are excellent. So we are going into the final. We've got Donna and Jill, and then we're going to finish on Alan Magit.
Hi everyone, Donna Thomas. I'd just like to say we're sitting here in quite heavy snow at the moment in Ballarat, so welcome to spring. Firstly, very passionate about BGANZ and everything that it does and everything that's achieving. It's in a really exciting space right now, so I feel very fortunate that we have so many incredible people and gardens on board. Some things in particular, like Mike said, I think mentoring is absolutely invaluable for regional gardens. Many of us, yes, haven't actually been or worked outside our cities or outside our botanic gardens, so I think that would be invaluable. Professional directory would be brilliant, just knowing who to contact about your particular problem, rather than bothering a whole lot of people in between trying to find the path through. I think in the conservation area, maybe like a database of who's actually working on what, so that if you're looking at another species in the same genus, you might know which direction to track towards to look for help. As regional botanic gardens dabbling in conservation, it's sort of hard to know, you know, we obviously, you know, RBG is so important to us, but it's actually really nice to know who else might be working on a similar plant. So that'd be important. And when we're over COVID, maybe open days. So more for the hands-on experience. You know, we gladly open our doors for everyone to come and have a wander through and just look at strategic as well as horticultural mentoring and sharing. So yeah, that's about it for me.
Wonderful. Thanks, Donna. I can't believe it's snowing there, but wow, amazing. Thank you so much. Next we just got about just a few minutes left. So we've got Jill Burness from Melbourne, and then straight after that, Alan Magit.
Thank you very much. I will be quick. So I'm with the Cranbourne Botanic Gardens and I work as the landscape planner. So I'm interested in the relationship between the big city botanic gardens and the regional botanic gardens, and how we can share resources, how there might be a program where people can ask to get experience in particular gardens. It can be between regional botanic gardens, you know, to actually have like a mentoring program where we can actually, if you've got a need, you can say, I would like experience in this, can I spend 2 months working in your garden? And we can perhaps work out how that might happen more than what it does at the present time. I think the other thing too is that I see a big difference between, we talk about regional botanic gardens, but we have botanic gardens which are 100 years old, that are 2 years old, and they have very, very different needs. And we're relying on those gardens to really say, this is what I need. But it's in a very informal sense. And I wonder if there could be a documentation, if gardens could say, this is who we are, this is what our biggest need is. We need someone who can help us with, you know, increasing our friends membership and our volunteers. We need staff resources, or, you know, that sort of thing. Or we're right at the point where we need capital funding, and how do I go about that? So then that leads me on to, so if we have like what are the key issues for each of these gardens? And then we might be able to find some really common themes or ways of supporting them we're not otherwise aware of. And then when it goes down to, I mean, funding is always a key item for all of us. And skilling people up about alternative avenues of funding, not just council or going to government, but maybe community donations or crowdfunding, things that perhaps we need more experience in how to go about, and they're outside what we would normally, you know, look at. So they're just a few scattergun ideas, but I thought that was worth contributing to the conversation. Thanks, Julia.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jill. Those are some great points. And finally, we've got Alan Magit.
Oh, hi there, everyone. Thanks very much for the opportunity. Nice to see some familiar faces there and some new faces and people I haven't met before. Hey, look, certainly agree specifically what Jules just said now about networking, sharing experiences and opportunities with regional gardens. Certainly the same applies here in New Zealand, for sure. There's some lovely gardens here, which certainly can do with a bit of help and assistance if they so desire, and also we should be offering that in many cases as well. Also, just around networking, certainly supporting regional on a global basis between the two countries, but also like to think that at some stage in the near future we could be reaching out to our Pacifica neighbours and developing links and professional liaisons with some of those countries and gardens. I know they're not very well resourced and often depend on the whims of the local authorities or the government there. They're certainly not very, as I say, not well resourced at all. And just finally, probably just stepping outside the square here, but professional development, which was one of the big areas within the survey. I'd like to see perhaps a little bit more direction and purpose for professional development for BGANZ as an organisation, putting some structure around that. And it's all very well, and I'm very supportive of supporting people to attend conferences. That's hugely important, getting a lot of experience from meeting people, visiting different places. But it's from a high level structure across and perhaps developing different levels of professional development that reach all parts of our organisations, from management right through down to collection curators and gardeners. But maybe at some stage in the future we can look at that.
Excellent. Thank you, Alan. Those are some very pertinent points and really summarise a lot of what we've been talking about today. So that's a really brilliant place for us to wrap this up. So thank you for that. And I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for your contributions, whether it's been on the survey, emails, and as well today in this forum. We really are reaching the end. So I'm going to hand back to Chris and just say thank you to everyone. We can share those timelines with you. And if you haven't had a chance to contribute today and there is something you'd like to say, I'm sure Eamon and I and potentially Chris can hang around. And also, of course, you're very welcome to email us as well. But I'm going to hand you all back to Chris.
Thanks, Julia, and thanks everyone. Just can't kind of overstate how valuable these sort of sessions are on a couple of levels. Obviously, the qualitative information that we will pull together, but also just reinforcing the value in the work that we're doing. It's a great boost of enthusiasm to see so much invested interest in the future of BGANZ. It really is reassuring the council. So just quickly, given short of time, in terms of next steps, we will be distilling the wisdom that we've gained from today and the online session. Also, our consultant Leanne Muffet is going to be chatting with a couple of partners, funding partners, and also Charbag, Council of Heads of Australian Botanic Gardens. So bringing all that information together, and then there's going to be 2 workshops which council will be involved with. One looking at our strategic direction and reviewing our mission and strategic objectives, and then a second one to develop a proposed governance model to best support achieving those objectives. So at that point, we would be we'll be providing updates to members, but at some stage, we're looking to have that proposed model. Looking at December as our target at the moment. So then we would be coming back to members with more detail on it and a more formal process to vote on the way forward. As a membership organisation, it's so important that it is a process where it is supported by members before we take further steps. So once again, very special thanks to Julia for hosting today, and Eamon and Sam and the rest of the crew involved. And it's just been great to see so many faces across a big area and have this enthusiasm.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Chris. Thank you, everyone. Take care, whether you're in the snow or the rain or hopefully not locked down, but we're thinking of you all. And Yeah, we're going to hang around for a few minutes if you'd like to, but otherwise have a wonderful weekend, and it's been amazing to connect with you all. Thanks, everyone. Okay, goodbye.
Thanks, Julia. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, Charlie.
How you going, Chris? That's good.
I'll be there.
Better head off.
No, we want the wedding.
Yeah.
What's John doing?
What is John doing?
Well done. That was a really good session.
Thank you.
Great.
I was just looking at Charlie's sharp haircut and making the contrast between states that are in lockdown, and look at this. I just
I had a buzz cut before.
Yeah, my mullet's coming along beautifully.
yeah, that's great.
Lovely. Well, thanks everyone. Is there anyone who's here who didn't get a chance to speak in the main forum who'd like to say something? I see we've got a few people still here. We've got Jane and Annie. And yeah, anything you'd like to say? I think you might be still mute. Oh, there we go, Annie. You go for it.
Just a few things. I did a survey and unfortunately it didn't get there. I miscued on the departure of it. A couple of things regarding young gardeners. Is there a serious career path promoted by BGANZ to universities so we get the best and brightest as trainees in for Botanic Gardens careers? At Dunedin, that was spoken about the value of our new young gardeners, and I wondered then if ours were properly cared for. And are there mentors? Are there people they would value that they could see that a career in Botanic Gardens is worthwhile, given its significant role, and it is likely to, through BGANZ, to be much greater value in the future in our dealing with our environment and promoting issues to councils who significantly ignore the environment and rip out every tree they can see. And I think BGANZ has ultimately has a role that would filter through to them. As far as BGANZ's future, I would see it taking a broader role in the message to the community, to take up the environmental issues and to count to the government, and ultimately in promoting Botanic Gardens as a whole, to have a seat at the table, essentially, as a section of government in serious commitment to environmental management and the education of councils who don't understand Botanic Gardens at all, which is to the detriment of regional Botanic Gardens. And BGANZ is a godsend when that was started years ago. But somehow to bring greater strength there through, how would I say it? Can't get the words at the moment. I had it all written down. That I'm sure BGANZ could be a greater force within government departments and somehow improve the role of Botanic Gardens in management of our environment, and maybe even get the builders to learn something about it. As far as regional Botanic Gardens go, as John took the words out of my mouth about they're attached to councils, and in fairness, councils know nothing about Botanic Gardens, and forever it is a serious struggle to get attention from them on the needs of Botanic Gardens. Furthermore, they are invariably laced up with parks, and they're two different schemes altogether. And frankly, sorry parks people, do not understand botanic gardens at all. And there's a battle all the time between, frankly, the danger of turning botanic gardens into municipal parks, because the councils invariably do not employ people who have the skills, because I think it needs a serious management structure in order that botanic gardens applicants for the key jobs do have the necessary essentials to manage them, and aren't somebody that's been working around the city who's put in charge of the garden, which is heartbreak to the friends who supported them. And I'm aware of that, having spent 10 years on the association committee. So
great.
I
Thanks,
think that'll
Amy.
do.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm glad you had the opportunity to have your say. Really appreciate that. We've also got Jane. Jane, would you like to add something to that, to the forum today? I think you might be muted. There you go.
Hi. Well, I'd endorse what Annie is saying and what John Arnott had to say about local government and regional botanic gardens. There's always been sort of a contest, or it's not, there's a lack of understanding in council of the importance of botanic gardens. But I think BGANZ is very, very aware of this, and it's been really interesting to hear today everybody's input. And I think the professional development, it's something that I've been a member of the Friends, like Annie, for I can't remember how long, and we have always pushed for professional development for staff in regional gardens, but this, it hasn't happened yet. So we still hope that might happen. But I think having these hookups like today is absolutely wonderful. And to see your lovely Auckland background there is stunning. Thanks very much. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you, Jane. That's lovely. It's wonderful that you were on the forum today. We've seen so many faces from right across the network. So thank you so much. Great. Well, I think that pretty much concludes everything. Charlie, I imagine you're waving goodbye. Yes. Awesome. Thank you so much. I think that's pretty much everything, unless there was any